Back in 2018, it was reported that the then Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia had secretly met with Israeli leaders, including the then Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This secret meeting reportedly happened in Amman in Jordan with the help of the United States. This meeting was surprising because the Saudis and the Israelis were thought of as traditional rivals in the Middle East. But there was a simple rationale for this meeting. An enemy's enemy is a friend. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss potential strategies for countering Iran's influence and also to discuss the possibility of a broad peace deal between Israel and the Arab states. The United States, led by then President Donald Trump, played a key role in facilitating this meeting. However, both Saudi Arabia and Israel did not officially acknowledge or confirm this meeting, and that remains the case up until this day. So it remains an unknown known until now, in the words of the former US Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld. Now, the same dynamics which were behind that particular meeting in Jordan back in 2018 are playing themselves out once again in the Middle East. Once again, Benjamin Netanyahu has returned as Israel's Prime Minister, and the fallout of his elevation is likely to cause significant changes to the region and beyond. On Crux Decode, what does the return of Bibi mean for Israel's relations with Saudi Arabia and Iran, its two biggest rivals in the Arab world? How do changing equations between Russia and these two Gulf countries force Israel to adapt its new stand? And will there be some bonhomie between Bibi and Putin? And how is the United States, which is the biggest player in the Middle East, likely to react to these changes? Benjamin Netanyahu's election is likely to fuel tensions with Arab neighbors. His policies have tended to be confrontational and hawkish in the past. His stated desire to normalize ties with Saudi Arabia has been met with some skepticism. The two countries have had a long history of animosity. They've never really had official diplomatic relations, even to this day. But in recent times, reports have emerged of behind-the-scenes cooperation between Riyadh and Tel Aviv on issues like counterterrorism and regional security. Additionally, some Saudi officials have also made public statements that are seen as more conciliatory towards Israel. They have also called for a more pragmatic approach in dealing with the Jewish state. Netanyahu's government is also likely to be less accommodating to Iran than the previous government, potentially leading to a surge in tensions between both countries. Netanyahu has been a vocal critic of Iran for many years now. He's made a number of statements against the Iranian government and its nuclear program, arguing that Iran poses the single biggest risk to the Jewish state. Most famously, in 2012, Netanyahu held up a diagram of a bomb at the United Nations General Assembly and warned that Iran was this close to developing a nuclear weapon. He also was singularly instrumental in convincing President Donald Trump to pull out of the Iran nuclear deal, something which has not been restored even under the Biden presidency. The ongoing tensions between Riyadh and Washington have been further complicated by the election of Netanyahu. The United States has traditionally been a key ally of Saudi Arabia, but Netanyahu's election could lead to a shift in American policy. Netanyahu is expected to push for closer ties with Saudi Arabia as well as other Gulf states, something that may or may not be welcomed by the Americans. What is possibly bringing about a sense of change is what happened when Netanyahu was in office in his previous term. The Abraham Accords were a series of agreements signed in September of 2020 between Israel, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain to establish diplomatic ties between these countries. This marked a major shift in traditional ties in the Middle East, as it marked the very first time in over a quarter of a century that an Arab nation had established formal diplomatic ties with Israel. The accords were brokered by the United States. They were seen as a significant step towards improving stability in the region. The warming ties between Russia and Saudi Arabia, too, have been a source of concern. Russian President Vladimir Putin has been courting the Saudis in recent years. And both countries have signed several economic and military agreements. Russia and Saudi Arabia have also been collaborating within the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, for several years now to help maintain the price of oil at a relatively high level. Now, this is done by adjusting production levels to balance supply and demand in the global oil market. This happened again during the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, prompting public chiding from the Biden White House. In 2016, Russia and Saudi Arabia had formed an alliance called OPEC+, which includes other major oil-producing countries like Venezuela, Mexico, and Kazakhstan. And none of these countries have any love lost with the United States. The alliance has been successful in controlling production levels to keep oil prices relatively high, and thereby it benefits oil-producing countries like Russia and Saudi Arabia. In fact, Saudi Arabia has been criticized for helping Russia indirectly by keeping oil prices high, and that has helped Russia in this ongoing war in Ukraine. Also, add to this ever-growing ties between Moscow and Tehran. There is evidence that Russia is supplying Iran with advanced Sukhoi fighter jets. That could give the Iranians a major advantage in the region. In fact, the ongoing conflict in Ukraine has also had more implications for the Middle East because Russia has long been a major player in the Middle East. The conflict in Ukraine has further cemented Russian influence in this region. The use of Iranian-made drones by Russia in Ukraine has raised concerns about their potential use in the Middle East as well. Russia has been using Iranian-made drones as well as other high-tech weapons. They've used this both in this current war in Ukraine as well as in the ongoing civil war in Syria. In Ukraine, Russia has ordered over 1,500 Iranian unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, to conduct attacks against Ukraine. Russia's use of Iranian drones in Ukraine imposes a very costly bill for defending against low-cost weapons, while Iran has been able to gain a major propaganda opportunity as well as potentially future clients for its weapons industry. 3 types of Iranian drones have been used in the war against Ukraine: the Shahid 131, the Shahid 136, and the Muhajir 6. The drones are all called loitering munitions, which are somewhere between precision-guided missiles and drones. Overall, the election of Benjamin Netanyahu has the potential to bring about major changes in the Middle East. It could lead to a warming of ties between Saudi Arabia and Israel, but further hostilities between Tehran and Tel Aviv. The role of Russia is also going to be increasingly critical because Iran would have gained a key ally against the West. The US and its NATO partners may have to confront a triumvirate of Russia, China, and Iran. And that, together, cannot be a pretty sight.